Okay, first and foremost, what is an assembly? An assembly file is nothing more than little pins pointing in the direction of a bunch of other files and the software deciding how all those pieces fit together. If I were to, say, magically and amazingly remove this one picture, all of a sudden my assembly doesn't work. There's a hole where there used to be a pointer to a file. This isn't going to do what we need it to do. This is why it is so vitally important that we maintain a proper file structure, that all of our files are where we need them to be, stored up correctly. Otherwise, as soon as I start moving these files or changing their names, that's when we wind up with trouble. The first thing we do is come up here and say New, Standard Assembly, and Create. There we go. So what I need to do is I need to put together, and let's put two simple objects in place. We'll go ahead and put our rock, which happens to be orange, and some rusted iron. So I've got two different cubes here. What I want to do is click OK, find a way to connect these two objects together so that they stay connected. When we add our constraints, essentially what we're going to do is take away one degree of freedom. So its ability to move on the X, move on the Y, or move on the Z at any given point. Our most common purpose we're going to use is our mate. All that means is we're sticking two pieces together. You're also going to occasionally find use for angle. You will definitely find use for tangent. Occasionally for insert, and I don't know that I've ever actually used the symmetry tool. But what we'll do is we'll say, okay, I want this face here and this face here to be stuck together forever. Apply. Now, while it looks like I can move far away and that these faces aren't stuck together, in reality, if I turn and look, it's just moved far away in space. They're still connected. For the most part, when it comes to constraints, we're going to need at least two, usually three, to lock two objects together. So I've already mated this face and this face together. So now I'm going to go ahead and join up this face and this face, and I want them to be flush to one another. As you can tell, the software wasn't sure what I wanted. It thought I wanted them mated, where they're facing each other. What I really wanted was to have them flush to one another. Once I apply it, now I've locked in two different directions. I've got my X and my Y. Now I need only to change and lock in my Z. So I've got these here that I can move still on my Z axis. So all I need to do is add one more constraint, and I could choose to do, again, this face to this face, lock them in flush. I can also do this edge to this edge. Now, no matter what I do, these are locked together. And if I open up and expand here, I can see each of the three parameters I used to lock these together. Well, for the most part, when we do a constraint, it's made for an object that should stay static, which is to say it doesn't move. It's locked into position. But one of the things that we can do is I'm going to start by lining up my centers here. So now I've got free range motion here. Notice I can move, I can twist, and I can move up and down. So all that's lined up right now is the center of this object and the center of that hole. What I can do is I can say that I want this edge and this edge to be constrained, but give it a limited range of motion that we can use. So, for example, I'll grab and say this surface here and this surface here. But if I expand out in this dialog box, I get the option of maximum and minimum. This allows me to give it a range of space that it can be connected to. So I can say minimum of 0, maximum of, say, I don't know, 2.5 inches. Now I can move this peg 2.5 inches out of that hole. It's still going to stay lined up, and because I set the minimum at 0, it's going to be right where that reference point was for that constraint, 0 from between the two, or a maximum of 2.5 between these 2 points.
Well, we're waiting.
The last part of the constraint tool I want to talk about, and I'm going to go ahead and come up here to our relationships, and you can see there's those two, that center line and that one, where you see plus and minus. So I've got a maximum and a minimum. I'm going to go ahead and select all of these and suppress them, so it's like they don't exist right now. Create another constraint, and I'll once again come to this surface here and this top here. And I say I always want them to be 1 inch apart from each other. So no matter where I move, no matter what else I try and do, that edge is, that surface is always going to be 1 inch away from that surface there. If I come back in and I say, I want this to be set up here so that those two edges are always going to be tangent to one another. So I just came up here and I grabbed the tangent tool. So this edge, this curve here, is always going to be tangent to this curve here. And it's always going to be 1 inch apart, surface to surface.
I say, Opie, I'll trade you this baseball for your souvenir bat.
Sure.
What did you learn?